All right, I'm in Cape Vincent right now. I'm at Tibbetts Point. I've got the lighthouse behind me, and it's quite rainy, and there's these bugs that are everywhere that are super annoying, but at least they're not biting. They're not like mosquitoes or anything. I've been seeing on YouTube a lot of tutorials and whatnot on how to make your photos look like frames from a movie. And while a lot of those tutorials are great, I kind of have my own method for doing that, and just wanted to show it to you guys. What better way to make your photos look like frames from a movie than have them actually be frames from a movie? Basically that means that I'm going to be taking moving pictures and taking frames from that. It's going to be a combination of shooting video on my camera using Canon log, and then also using DaVinci and Filmbox Lite to do this. This basically allows you to do this completely free. So DaVinci's free, Filmbox Lite is free, as long as you have a camera, and that camera doesn't even need to actually shoot log. It's just better if it does. I mean, I'm shooting 8-bit log. There's some arguments on whether that's even like useful. These bugs are insane. They're kind of like swimming around me here. So you can even use your cell phone for this, and I'm gonna actually do that as a proof of concept that you can use your phone to get footage. So the first step is that you have to get your camera. Right now I'm using Canon EOS R, and I've got the 35mm prime STM lens, so it's the f1.8. And you don't necessarily need to have a super wide open aperture for this to work. You can do this with like a more closed lens, and that it'll work fine. There's this correlation between depth of field and cinema-like look, and obviously that can be a factor in this, but it's not required. I mean, there's lots of movies that don't shoot wide open, don't have like a super blurry background, but they're still movies and they still look film-like or cinema-like. But basically, even like with modern digital cinema cameras, I feel like a lot of films are still trying to get that film look, and that's kind of where Filmbox goes in. The general concept with getting your photos to look like stills from a movie kind of comes down to lens choice a bit. I feel like that's one of the most important factors. Kind of a newer trend in cinema is using wider angle lenses. So nothing like a 16mm or anything like that. Using like a 35 as opposed to maybe an 85 or like a 50. Not saying that you can't use those lenses. I mean, an 85 and 50mm lens will give you the same effect, but using something super wide is not going to really help you here. If you go on and you use your phone, if you have a telephoto lens on your phone, you can zoom in 2 times or 3 times. That'll be really great. I recommend 2 times, and I think you'll get some really great footage. You just don't want to be shooting on your like widest lens on your phone, or the like main lens, maybe zoom in a bit, or shoot 4K on your phone and crop in later and get a really good effect. There's certain things that you can use, like movement. So if you have a subject, even having that subject move, you can show the movement. That'll help a lot. I'm not too concerned about like getting an actual subject, but I'm just gonna get some stuff. I mean, I have Lake Ontario right here, and I have this lighthouse. There's kind of this like ugly orange fence, you know, that's fine. I have the foghorns over there. There's a little viewing deck. And I'm gonna basically just go around and grab some footage. I'm just gonna kind of stay still, you know, like I'm gonna have my camera, I'm gonna record, I'm gonna stay still and start the recording and then stop the recording. And I think that's gonna be the best method to this. I'm kind of winging it here, I'm not gonna lie. Pretty much my plan right now is just to go around, grab some footage, and hopefully it'll look really nice. that's gonna be it for what I'm gonna record myself shooting, but I'm just gonna go around and grab some B-roll shots. All right, so I'm back home, I'm at my computer, and we have DaVinci Resolve open right now. So for this, you're gonna need two pieces of software here. You're gonna need DaVinci Resolve, which is a free piece of editing software. You can download that right here. The link will be in the description. And you're going to need Filmbox Lite. You enter your name, your email address, you can download for free. You need to have DaVinci Resolve before you download Filmbox. The link for Filmbox will also be in the description as well. So I have DaVinci and Filmbox installed right now. I have DaVinci Studio, which is the paid version. All of the tools that we'll be using in this tutorial are completely free and part of the free version. So I have a blank project open here, and I just imported my clips into my media pool. I have 3 iPhone clips and then a large handful of clips recorded on my Canon that were recorded in log. So I'm gonna grab a clip right here and I'm just gonna drag it onto my timeline. I'm gonna grab this clip right here. I'm just gonna drag it in here and I'm gonna go over to my editing tab. So I have the clip open right here. And if you go to Open Effects and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, you're gonna see Filmbox Lite there. You can drag Filmbox Lite over and drop it on your clip. And you'll see that instantly it's already applied. This clip I was using auto white balance, so the white balance kind of changes halfway through the clip, but for the purposes of this, it really does not matter. Just go to a good spot that you think might be where you want to grab a still, and you just want to go to Effects, and you'll see Filmbox Lite is here. And this is where you can edit the settings for Filmbox Lite. So right now I have the source as ARRI, which is going to be your default. I was filming on Canon Log. And the closest thing to regular Canon Log in the selection here is Canon Log 3. So I'm going to select Canon Log 3 here, and I'm going to open up the camera tab. And this is where you can adjust things like exposure, temperature, and tint. I'm going to drag down the exposure just so it looks a little dark. One thing that's going to help you a lot is if you make your clips a little bit darker. Not underexposed, just darker. I feel like a trend in films that you see is that they're pretty dark. Part of this is to show an effect of when things are really bright, that they're very obviously really bright. This is also a dark and stormy day, so I wanted to make it really look like that. So I turned down the exposure quite a bit. I have the exposure turned down. I'm gonna also cool it down a bit. And I think that looks good right there. And then maybe I'm gonna make it a little greener. And I think this is a really stylized looking shot that looks really good. I could feel like I could see this clip in general in maybe like a movie or a film or whatever. I also mentioned earlier that you don't need to be shooting log and you can use any camera. So for my alternate camera, I use an iPhone, which is what most people will have access to if they don't have an actual camera. So I'm gonna scroll to the bottom here of my media pool and I'm gonna pick one of these iPhone clips. I'm gonna pick one that's almost the same here. It's a little bit more zoomed in, but I think that it will work just fine. I'm gonna drag it onto my timeline here and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna pick a part that I think looks good. Maybe like right there. And I'm going to scroll all the way to the top of my Open Effects. And right at the top here, you can see Color Space Transform. I'm going to grab this effect and I'm going to drag it onto my clip. So I'm going to select my clip here and I have Color Space Transform. And this first tab is what we're going to want to be paying attention to. You have Input Color Space, Input Gamma, Output Color Space, and Output Gamma. I'm going to leave both of the inputs the same as just the timeline. And I'm going to grab the output color space and the output gamma, and I'm going to set these two the same as my camera. So I'm going to scroll down until I see Canon Cinema Gamma. I'm going to select that. And then for my output gamma, I'm going to use Canon Log 3. And now this looks relatively similar to the clip that I had before I applied Filmbox. So I'm going to select this clip again, and I'm going to close up Color Space Transform. We're done using that effect. So I'm going to scroll all the way down to the bottom of Open Effects again, and I'm going to see Filmbox Lite. I'm going to drag Filmbox Lite over and drop it on the clip. So now that Filmbox Lite is applied, I'm going to do the same thing as I did before. I'm going to open up the source here, and I'm going to set Canon Log 3. And now I'm going to open up the camera, and I'm going to turn down the exposure a bit, and maybe cool it down a little bit, and maybe make it look a little bit greener. And I think that we have something that looks relatively similar. Maybe I want to warm it up just a tad, maybe turn the green down a tad, maybe brighten it up a little bit. And I think this is something that's relatively similar. And if you can't get it quite right with the settings within Filmbox, there's a few other settings here. If you go down to Lab, you can enable this and you can adjust vibrance, contrast. I'm going to turn down the contrast a bit. and maybe we can get these looking relatively similar. And while the look is kind of similar, it's not perfect, but they are two drastically different cameras. So I think that looks relatively the same. I'm gonna cool it down maybe a little bit more, and I think I'm satisfied with that. So to export the stills, you're gonna wanna open the color tab here. And in the color tab, you have both of your clips. So you want to go to your timeline of where you wanna grab your still. I'm gonna grab it right there. And I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna hit grab still. You're gonna see it in the top left here in your gallery. I'm gonna scroll over and I'm gonna go to the iPhone footage and I'm gonna right click and I'm gonna grab still. So now I have both of these stills here, and I can go in and I can add more clips and add Filmbox some more clips here. So I can grab this, I can drag my Filmbox light over, I can set it to the proper source, grab my camera, maybe turn down the exposure, maybe adjust the temperature, and then maybe if I'm satisfied, I go to my color, grab still, and then boom, it's there. So I'm gonna go over and I'm gonna select each one by holding shift and clicking each frame. I'm gonna right click the empty space, I'm going to hit export, and then I'm gonna be on my desktop. I'm gonna label these stills from movie. I'm just gonna make sure I'm selected on JPEG. I believe the default will be DPX. So as long as you're on JPEG or PNG, it does not matter. You can hit export and those will export onto your desktop and you will have your photos. I hope it was easy to follow along and I hope that you learned something. I think this is a really great way to get really interesting looking pictures that you just, I feel like, can't get quite right with just taking a raw photo. I think there's something special about recording in a log format or transforming to a log format and applying this Filmbox. I feel like it doesn't necessarily maybe look exactly like film. I feel like a lot of people try to get a digital film simulation and that's not really what I'm going after here. I want this to look like cinema. So that's what I went ahead and I did with Filmbox here. So I think the stills came out really great. If you want to see all the stills that I got while making this video, you can go over to my Instagram, which will be linked in the description below, and I've posted a few of those. I hope everybody goes out there and gets some great shots, and happy shooting.